This is something about colonization that we all need to know. The dehumanization of a native peoples and indigenous peoples is always one of the first things to be established, and religious supremacy is never too far behind. In fact, they often work hand in hand. The Zionists had a rallying cry when they began to settle into the land of Palestine, a cry that encouraged Jewish settlements into Palestine, a land without a people for a people without a land. Early Zionists basically claimed that Palestine was uninhabited, that no one lived there, which of course was completely untrue. And Zionists denied and continue to reject the existence of a distinct Palestinian culture, even though Palestinians have always made it clear that they have a distinct culture.
Does it bother you that you're living somewhere so heavily militarized where Palestinians that have been here for generations are getting kicked out of their houses and can't walk on certain streets?
So I'll ignore the use of the term Palestinian since there is no such nation or people. It doesn't bother me at all.
Regardless of religion, Palestinians were often referred to as Arabs, people of the Arabic-speaking world, despite their distinctive culture.
Palestinians have long distinguished themselves as Ahl Palestine, or the people of Palestine. They developed a distinctive Arabic accent, they developed regional food, regional dress, and family ties.
And of course, Zionists believe that it is God's plan or God's will for Jewish people to establish a nation in occupied Palestine. And this is the position, Zionism, that many Jewish people believe is an affront to the religion itself. Y'all, over 700,000 Palestinians became refugees when driven off their land during the Nakba in 1948. Yet this is what was called a land without a people, the Zionist rallying cry for the establishment of a settler colony in Palestine.
The film provides all the documentary evidence needed to justify an increasingly popular Zionist slogan: a land without a people, for a people without a land.
What is meant by the slogan, land without a people, is that the Arabs of Palestine do not constitute a national entity. These people somehow are generic Arabs. They belong to the desert. They're rootless.
The dehumanization was at the very beginning, because colonial powers don't recognize peoples that exist in a way that they would deem evil or abnormal. And this is, in essence, all non-white culture.
In the minds of those who believed in the slogan, Arabs are part of nature. There's a tree, a rock, a sheep, and a person, but they're indistinguishable from each other.
And this is the dehumanization that continues today by the constant reduction of Palestinians to animals, barbarians, savages, etc., which we have seen plenty of examples of in Israeli leadership.
You've rightly drawn a clear line between the forces of civilization and the forces of barbarism. An enemy of civilization. They are savages.
And of course, when we talk about dehumanization and colonization, this isn't the only example, because this also happened during the age of colonization starting in the 15th century. An idea that rationalized the claiming of land was Terra Nullius. It's Latin and it means lands belonging to no one, or nobody's land. Sound familiar? In simple terms, it was a concept used by European colonial powers during the age of colonization, and it said that lands belonging to non-Christian indigenous peoples were unclaimed or uninhabited, and because of this could be legitimately taken and colonized. Same playbook. These empires split land that belonged to other people amongst themselves because they could. To them, because indigenous Africans, indigenous Americans weren't Christians, it was their God-given right to do so. This led to the death of millions of people over the next century and beyond, as their lands became captured, decimated, and plundered. A period and ideology so bloody that after years of outcry from indigenous groups, it was renounced by the Pope earlier this year. Terra Nullius, or Nobody's Land, was also in play for the colonization of Australia. When Captain James Cook claimed the eastern coast of Australia for the British Crown in 1770, he did so under the idea that the land was Terra Nullius, or land belonging to no one. And this came despite the fact that indigenous peoples existed there for tens of thousands of years before European colonization. And we've learned this month that the citizens of Australia rejected a proposal to recognize the Aboriginal people in the Constitution. As one writer said, Australia now occupies a unique position globally. It is the only colonial settler society in the world that not only does not recognize in any way those dispossessed by colonialism, but whose citizens have actively rejected any such recognition. In response to this, indigenous Australians have said that reconciliation is dead. From the Americas to Africa to Australia, the playbook was always the same. That because the indigenous peoples didn't hold the same cultural markers or religious identities of the colonizing force, they didn't exist. Their lands belonged to no one because they were considered no one. So when we see the dehumanization of these marginalized communities show up in the modern day, as it is happening now with Palestine, just know the dehumanization started at the very beginning. In colonization, it always does. So as we press forward in whatever way we do, follow these pages. Don't become numb to the humanity of people as we've been trained to do. Because again, I remind you that no one of us can be free until all of us are free. Thank you for watching, and as always, like and follow for more content.
In 1937, Winston Churchill said of the Palestinians, I quote, "I do not agree that the dog in a manger has the final right to the manger, even though he may have lain there for a very long time. I do not admit that right. I do not admit, for instance, that a great wrong has been done to the Red Indians of America or the black people of Australia. I do not admit that a wrong has been done to these people by the fact that a stronger race, a higher grade race, a more worldly wise race, to put it that way, has come in and taken their place. That set the trend for the Israeli state's attitude towards Palestinians.